Despite my misgivings for a lot of the choices, especially in this episode, I find myself really curious about what's about to happen next. I want to keep watching. I don't want to leave it on this note. I really want to finish the entire arc of the invasion. Can the show pull this runaway ship back on course and steer it into port? I, for one, really hope so.
And now the conclusion.
Good day, everyone, and welcome back to the grand finale of our deep dive into Animorphs TV, the television adaptation of the beloved 90s children's novels. Last time we explored the second episode of the invasion arc, where we speculated about the somewhat tenuous future of the series. We looked at the good and the bad of this series and wondered if this third episode would bring the ship back on course. Unfortunately, the answer to that is both a relieved yes and a resounding no. Don't know what that means? Me neither, so come along and we'll figure it out with Episode 3, The Underground.
My name is Marco. I'd give anything to be on the other side again.
We begin the episode, and this time it's Marco making the opening monologue. I guess this is just how they're going to be opening the episodes from now on. It is in keeping with the format of the books, but if they're going to do this every episode, I think it's going to get old really fast.
And I remember that at any minute, a controller could be sneaking up on me, about to shove a slimy alien slug in my ear.
That's not exactly how this works. The Yeerks don't just jump you in the street and stuff a worm in your ear, but he's very new to this Animorphs thing, so I don't really hold it against him that he doesn't know that yet. Marco arrives at Jake's house and is confronted by a new character, Jake's older brother, Tom.
Looking for Jake?
Oh. Hey, Tom. Yeah, is he upstairs?
I don't know. I just got here.
Right.
Tom lets Marco into the house where the rest of the gang is already waiting in Jake's room.
Hey, dude, we gotta stop meeting like this.
We always hung out before. It'd be a bigger bust if we suddenly stopped. I agree.
This is actually a pretty significant departure from the books. Sure, Rachel was Jake's cousin, but they didn't really get to see each other because of a messy divorce in Rachel's family. Jake and Marco were pretty inseparable, and Jake and Cassie had a not-so-secret crush on each other, but none of the gang really knew Tobias, and they never hung out as a group prior to becoming the Animorphs. In the books, it was actually a lot more conspicuous if they hung together as a group in case the Yeerks did the math and put 2 and 2 together. I guess in this case, 2 and 3 together, or 4 and 1 together. Either way, 5 people, 5 Animorphs. Jake gives Marco the disc and he tries it in Jake's personal computer. Predictably, this doesn't work at all, though at least the show has the self-awareness to make a good joke about it.
Worked on Independence Day.
Yeah, but they had Will Smith.
Fair enough. Tom suspiciously interrupts their meeting, and then this happens. The group disbands and tries to plan their next move.
Let's sleep on it, okay?
Ooh, long-term fans of the books will know the significance of those words. I'm not going to spoil it here as it's quite late in the series, but oh. Although considering when this episode was released, it's almost certain the showrunners didn't know either, so thank goodness for that. Jake and Marco start casually shooting hoops and invite Tom to join, but Tom reveals that he's quit the basketball team and joined a brand new club.
Team's history. I'm going somewhere else.
Where?
To a new club. The Sharing. Everybody's joining.
Wait a second, you quit the basketball team?
Jake. There is more to life than throwing a ball at a stupid hoop.
This is big news, as it turns out Tom was some kind of basketball wunderkind who apparently could have easily gone pro if he'd wanted to. Jake is stunned by this information, but Marco starts to get suspicious. He expresses concern that Tom may be a controller.
You know all that stuff about how anybody can be a controller?
Yeah. What do you say? What are you saying?
I'm just saying that it's pretty weird that your all-star, all-state Mr. Basketball brother would suddenly quit playing hoops.
Yeah, so?
Jake doesn't react well to this, but he certainly reacts a lot better than he did in the book.
It would never get to my brother.
Still, he does snap at Marco and takes a very cheap shot.
Hey, if you're looking for someone who's acting weird, why don't you start with your father?
This has crossed a line, and Marco storms off. He returns home to a very tense conversation with his father.
Hey, Marco.
Didn't you have a job interview today?
Yeah. Yeah, I canceled.
Oh. Great.
Actually, I had something more important to do.
Like what?
I went down to the cemetery, put some fresh flowers out for your mom.
Oh. Well, there'll be other job interviews.
Yeah.
Want me to call for a pizza?
Sure, that'd be great.
Once again, the actor portraying Marco's dad just absolutely kills it. I didn't think they'd be able to top last episode's scene, but here they just knock it out of the park. So far, this is the most compelling relationship on the show, and I'm so glad it's getting all this screen time. We cut to Tobias walking Rachel home from the meeting, and here we begin to see the hints of a budding romance.
Where do you live anyway?
I'm down on Grove with my aunt. Last year I used to live with his other uncle. Kinda get passed around.
That must be rough.
I gotta get going.
You know, I saw a hawk flying over my house this morning.
What makes you think it was me?
Something about the way it flew.
These two haven't really had any on-screen time together, and the show does a pretty good job nailing their chemistry.
Do you ever wish you could just fly away?
Sometimes.
This tender moment, however, is interrupted by Rachel's mischievous sister Sarah, who makes a triumphant return.
Smile! Now you have a picture of your new boyfriend.
Sarah!
Aw, Sarah's just out here doing the level best she can to make all my shipper trash dreams come true. The next day, Marco has a run-in with Chapman at school, who chastises him on his dropping grades.
It always bothers me when the grades of one of our best students begin to drop.
Well, if I find that student, I'll tell him you said so.
Levity won't get you out of this.
In the book, Marco was never much of a scholar. He would celebrate when he got a B, but here it appears he's one of the school's star students, even going so far as to have this exchange.
I didn't think you'd show.
Oh, what are you kidding? I live for science lab makeups, bro.
Jake apologizes for what happened earlier, and the two make up and have a very healthy display of masculine tenderness. This is interrupted when they hear Chapman speaking very loudly and conspicuously outside the classroom door.
Have you had any success in locating the Andalites?
Not yet, but we're still looking.
That's unacceptable.
We know they're using human morphs, approximately the same age as my host body.
Just find them.
They're just having this conversation out in the open? Could these Yeerks be any more incompetent? The pair decide to investigate. They morph into lizards and follow Chapman at a distance. In the book, Jake followed Chapman alone, and it was planned ahead of time. They already knew about the Yeerk pool and were trying to find an entrance. Here it's the two of them, and they're following him on a whim. I actually really like this change because it's a lot easier to get across exposition with two characters talking to each other than with one just by themselves. Television doesn't usually have the advantage of an internal monologue that books do, and even in the graphic novel, this scene suffered a bit, having to frame it as Jake telling the gang about it after the fact.
It's between classes.
No, scared. Run, hide.
Get a grip.
Get a grip. Get a grip. Man, this skink is one nervous animal.
Oh, wait a minute, now in the show they're skinks? Well, now I don't feel so bad calling it a lizard instead of an anole this whole time. Anole? Anole? Why haven't I looked this up yet? They followed Chapman into a janitor's closet where Jake's brother Tom waits for him. Jake and Marco watch in dismay as Tom reveals both the entrance to the Yeerk pool and his identity as a controller.
Regeneration must begin tonight, at sundown.
I need the Chondrona nutrients. How many new hosts will be there?
50 new members from the sharing.
It's then that Chapman notices the lizards and grabs Marco by the tail. Marco's lizard brain takes over, severing its own tail, and the two Animorphs make a dramatic escape.
Next time we use a phone booth, dude.
Hey, I made that joke like last episode, the whole phone booth thing. Yeah, good job, you. The gang meets up that night, resolved to do something about the Yeerk pool.
Jake, I'm really sorry about your brother.
I'm gonna set him free no matter what it takes. When we do, I'm gonna take that Yeerk inside of his head and squash it like a bug.
They head to the Gardens, a local zoo where Cassie's family works, intent on acquiring some powerful morphs with which to fight the Yeerks. In the books, they infiltrated at daytime. Going at night honestly makes a lot more sense. Plus, it removes the need to hire extras, which is money they're definitely going to need in a scene or two. We get some more fun Jake and Marco banter. These two play off each other really well, and I'm glad the series is giving their friendship a little more screen time.
Why do I have to go first?
Because you're small, I can get you up there.
Well, you're the leader, why don't you go first?
Okay, you boost me.
Man, that's barbed wire, baboso.
You guys almost finished.
My bad, dude.
It's nice getting these little moments because we're finally getting to see who these characters are and how they really interact with each other. Jake acquires his signature morph, a tiger. In the book, it was a Siberian tiger. Here, it's a white Bengal. I guess beggars can't be choosers when hiring trained animals on a shoestring budget in Toronto, Canada. I'm honestly just impressed they got a tiger at all.
This one's for you, Tom.
Next, Rachel acquires her morph, a lion. This time they get the animal real wrong. In the book, she morphs an elephant. They likely went with lions since it's a lot easier to shoot around on a film set. Lions are smaller, lower profile, you don't have to build as much scenery around them. But it still feels disappointing. Rachel's elephant is iconic in her first few books, and the fact that we saw an elephant last episode had me hopeful that one might show up this time. Huge props to my wife for actually spotting that elephant the previous episode. I missed it completely, I was too distracted by Tobias's herd of goats. We don't get to see the rest of the team acquire any morphs. Now, I assumed when I was first watching this that they were saving the reveal for later and we'd get to see them all in the attack on the Yeerk pool. Oh, friends, how wrong I was. The gang heads to the high school where they attempt to blend in as human controllers. The slow-mo lines of people are a little cheesy, but it definitely sells the unsettling sight of the host bodies marching inhumanly down to the pool. The team descends into the janitor closet and we get our first glimpse at the Yeerk pool. The set is honestly quite good. The churning liquid is suitably gross, the lighting is appropriately alien, and though it's clear they're shooting around a limited set and small number of extras, they do a great job of selling this as a much larger space than it is.
Jake, look.
Let go of me! You can't put that thing back in me!
Keep those freeholds quiet!
A controller guard tries to front with them as they break off from the group, but Tobias rolls a nat 20 on a bluff check.
We report directly to Visser 3. Get out of our way.
They move to a secluded location in which to morph. All but Cassie, who for whatever reason stays in line and has to fake her way past. Cue the conveniently placed pebble.
No, don't put that thing back in my ear! Let go of me!
Rachel and Tobias morph and spring into action, attacking the controllers and causing mayhem. What ensues can only very charitably be called a fight scene. Mostly, it's just shots of the lion and tiger in close-up, intercut with people falling over into the pool. The dialogue tries to sell it like there's more going on here than there is.
Rachel, you have Visser 3 to your right and 2 Hork-Bajir behind you.
Thanks, Tobias.
What is going on up there?
But unfortunately, this scene is really underwhelming. It's incredibly anticlimactic. It's less a Yeerk pool battle and more Yeerk pool shenanigans. This brings us to the show's central problem, and it's something that I find really frustrating. Who decided to greenlight a television show that features live animals, science fiction action, heavy special effects without giving it the money that it needed to pull off that concept. This isn't a small part of the source material. The books rely heavily on big action set pieces that wouldn't be out of place in a summer blockbuster. A show like this was going to be very expensive to work. They had to know that going in. So if they're not going to give it the money it needs, why make it at all? Or at the very least, why proceed with the very questionable decision to make it a live-action show? I think that in 1998, it would have been a much smarter decision from a business and a filmmaking standpoint to just make it a cartoon. Yes, animation is incredibly expensive as well, very time-consuming. You gotta give it the love it deserves. But a cartoon would have vastly expanded their ability to accurately adapt the source material in a way that doesn't feel this clumsy and incoherent. There's only so much clever editing will do to disguise the fact that your aliens are action figures and you can only afford 1 hour on set with the trained animals. With animation, the sky's the limit. Sure, you may have to cut corners to cut down the budget, but at least you could do something that feels exciting and representative of the source material, something that at least evokes a sense of excitement. In live action with a minimal budget, the limitations are painfully clear. There's no sense of tension here. After 3 episodes of build-up, what should be a climactic set-piece action scene is instead 7 shots of animals running and a bunch of screaming extras. No Hork-Bajir combat, no Visser 3 morph, not even a freaking gorilla. This whole sequence just feels sad and deeply disappointing. Anyway, the group releases the host cages and pandemonium breaks loose. Everybody tries to make a break for the door. It honestly kinda looks like a lot of people get away, which makes me wonder how this wasn't the end of the series completely. In the book, the Yeerks start killing escaping hosts indiscriminately to avoid the secret getting out. At the end, only 1 host escapes with the Animorphs, and that's after Visser 3 absolutely destroys them. Here it looks like a bunch of people get out before the doors get closed, so I guess RIP to the Yeerks' secrecy. Jake gets trapped behind the gate, but morphs his lizard and quickly sneaks through. Chapman, having failed to stop the Animorphs, gets confronted by Visser 3.
We did our best. You have failed once again. Ah!
Ouch. The gang escapes into the street where Marco has a brief internal monologue.
I'd give anything to be just a regular kid again. But no, now I get to change my shape more often than I change my underwear.
Are you freaking kidding me? The only morphs Marco's done is a lizard in this episode and a rat in the last episode, and that was for all of 2 minutes. Either they're really trying to convince us that this show has a bigger budget than it actually does, or Marco really doesn't change his underwear enough. You're not fooling anybody, show! The group thanks Tobias for helping them escape, only to discover that the red-tailed hawk in front of them isn't actually Tobias. They realize in horror that they left him behind in the Yeerk pool.
No. You don't think... Tobias?
Rachel, I'm sure he made it out. Tobias!
Tobias? Tobias?
Tobias! Hey, Tobias!
Tobias!
And on that somber note, we finish the underground and the invasion story arc concludes. Honestly, after 3 episodes, I can't help but feel a little disappointed in the end. This show had a lot of promise to it. A decent cast of relative unknowns, a wonderful IP on which to draw upon, a built-in fanbase from the skyrocketing popularity of the books. In recent years, Sean Ashmore has given a few interviews in which he touched upon Animorphs.
And I came to realize that at that time, I don't think there was a lot for teenagers in the science fiction world. There was sort of like Goosebumps, which was kind of like the horror side of things. But I can't really think of a lot of examples of science fiction, and I think that there was just a real like thirst for, you know, young, teenage sort of level science fiction. So I think that's kind of why people still remember it and why it was impactful, is because there wasn't really anything else quite like it at the time.
And I generally agree. Outside of shows like Star Trek and Babylon 5, which were much more aimed at a sort of all-encompassing family-friendly science fiction, there wasn't anything specifically for kids. There wasn't really anything like this on television at the time, so the pieces were all there to make this pretty successful. The problem is, I think whoever financed this show had only one thing in mind, and that's money. Sure, any art made for a mass audience is going to be inherently a product, but there's a difference between making something to make money and making something to make art that makes money. I think the producers of this show took one look at the success of the Animorphs TV show, and rather than trying to do a sci-fi Buffy the Vampire Slayer type thing, instead said, how can we make as much money off of this while spending as little as possible? But unfortunately for the team at Animorphs TV, the old adage remains true, you've gotta spend money to make money. In the end, I feel this series is defined by one word: potential. They had the potential to make a fun, quirky, exciting adaptation of the Animorphs books. But because someone somewhere decided that the show wasn't really worth the investment required to make it a reality, most of that potential remained where it began, in the pages of a book. We can only hope someday that Animorphs gets the TV and film adaptation it deserves. Maybe this upcoming movie that we're going to get is going to be that, but based on recent comments by Grant and Applegate, I really don't think that's going to be the case. Until then, I'll be over here just anxiously awaiting the release of Book 2 of the awesome graphic novel. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give a comment below, like, subscribe for future videos, all that sort of thing. I really enjoyed making this series, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. And one final plug for the Chris Grind graphic novel. This is a wonderfully faithful adaptation. If you're new to the series, if you're old to the series, this is for you. It's where I got all the fabulous artwork that I've used in this. I really hope he gets the opportunity to adapt more of this series, and the only way that's going to happen is if people buy these books, so please support your local bookstore, pick up a copy of this today. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on the next video.